Wanna talk? So let's talk. Here. Talk. You wanna talk? You gotta talk, you need to talk. News talk.
I talk, you talk to Solomon. I talk, you talk to Solomon. Yeah, let's talk to Solomon. Talk to Solomon.
You gotta talk, you wanna talk.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Talk to Solomon. That's me, Stan Solomon. I'm the host.
I'm Chief Steve Davis, the in-studio co-host.
We're glad to have you with us. Brent Johnson is under the weather today, so he couldn't join us. But we're going to talk about immigration this half hour. We have a guest that may be joining us, hopefully, Steve Camarota from the Center for Immigration Studies. But there is an interesting comment out there, Chief. A Republican congressman said in addressing Senator Marco Rubio, Senator Rubio, there's somebody on television impersonating you, saying they're you, but what they're saying, it can't be you because it's 100% wrong. It's 180 degrees opposite. That was a clever statement, wasn't it?
Very clever and very accurate as well.
Marco Rubio, and let me say this to you, sir. You've accomplished a great deal. You're a good man. Everything I've heard about you and heard from you, frankly, has been very impressive, with this exception. You trust Democrats, which shows you're an idiot, which shows you shouldn't be left alone with toilet paper and a shower curtain, which shows that you haven't the sense to come in out of the rain because you're a fool. Now, here's the bottom line. If we offer a path to citizenship, legalization, even without citizenship, to the 1 or 100 million, however many there are, illegals in this country, we are doomed. We are doomed. And don't give me this crap about what immigrants have meant to this country because they were legal immigrants. We have never in our history welcomed people to break our laws. We've had times when we didn't have any immigration laws and said, y'all come. I agree. This is not such a time. Here's the reality. Check me on my numbers, Chief. Senator Rubio, listen carefully. There are approximately 6.3 billion people in the world. Of those 6.3 billion, 0.3 billion, or give or take 300 million, are here. Given the opportunity, 98% of the other 6 billion will come here. Sir, pull your head out of your Obama and wake up. I was respectful.
Very respectful, especially since what you started with this hour with, or this episode with, is that Senator Rubio is actually either a liar or a racist or both, because he is saying one thing one place and one thing in another. His advertisements say different languages. His advertisements that are bombarding the radio stations say that they're going to secure the border, when in reality that's not going to happen at all. But now it appears to me that Senator Rubio is picking Hispanics, illegal Hispanics, over American citizens. And again, American citizens...
Including Hispanic American citizens.
Yes, and American citizens are supposed to be non-hyphenated American citizens. They're not black Americans or white Americans or Hispanic Americans. They're Americans with all the same rights and benefits that go to Americans. And so he is bypassing that and chastising American citizens to give credit to and more benefits to illegal immigrants, regardless of their status. But they're mostly Hispanics. So in my mind, it appears to be a racist act.
Now, here's the reality. We had Jessica Puentes Bradshaw on last week. Jessica was born in Mexico. Her family is American. They came here and were, through the system, and were naturalized and are American citizens. She speaks Spanish, has family in Mexico, knows thousands of people in the Hispanic community. And here's the fact, what she's saying. Ready? The Hispanics are all saying to each other and to all that understand them, hey, Obama's going to give us citizenship. Everybody get here as fast as you can. I think we have Steve with us now. Hello, Steve. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure. Steve, you're with the Center for Immigration Studies. We were talking about Senator Rubio and his evil twin, who's on television these days, saying things that we know Senator Rubio would never say, and the fact that people that we know in the Hispanic community, born, raised, and part of the Hispanic community, born in other countries and this country, are all saying the same thing. The word has gone out in all of Mexico, in all of Central America and South America. Get to America as fast as you can because Obama's going to give you citizenship. Am I right or wrong?
Well, certainly in the past when we've had amnesties, it does seem to have encouraged even more people to come illegally. And we do know that in at least the last year or two, the number of people being apprehended on the southern border has increased. And it does seem that people are aware of this. And so we would expect, if you're going to offer an amnesty, it will stimulate more illegal immigration. It has in the past, and it certainly seems to be doing so again.
Now, the fact is, we know that Napolitano told us the border is secure. We've had the Obama administration say maybe it was Clinton that said he worked as hard as he can, but that was it getting in Monica's pants. But the fact is, Obama has told us that illegal immigration is not what we think it is. It's way down, and on and on and on. I know your organization is very good on facts and figures and research, and have said that you think the 11, 12 million figure is, true. I don't. But no matter what's true, if the bill is passed, the number of illegals in this country will double in a very short period of time, right or wrong?
I certainly think that we can expect a much larger level of future illegal immigration because people will be encouraged to come illegally. I do think that's true, and I also think what your listeners have to know is one of the things about this bill is it dramatically increases legal immigration. So the number of people coming into the United States legally will increase dramatically as a result of this bill, both unskilled workers and skilled folks coming to be with family members. Right now, about 1 million people come in legally. That's the green cards each year. For permanent immigration, you can eventually become a citizen with that. This bill puts it up to 2 million a year. So a very substantial increase in legal immigration as well.
People don't realize that. And they don't realize, well, they do realize, but they don't. If they're Democrats, they're idiots. If they're Republicans, they're morons. But the fact is that every person that comes into this country, since we have fewer jobs than we have people looking for jobs, the last time I checked, every person that comes into this country, legally or illegally, has the potential to keep an American from getting a job or to cause an American to lose a job. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a mistake to say that every job taken by an immigrant is a job necessarily lost by an American. But it is reasonable to argue that dramatically increasing the supply of workers, as this bill does, and as our legal immigration system does, just generally has an adverse impact on jobs and wages and opportunities for Americans, particularly those who aren't that well educated, those with only a high school education, those who didn't graduate high school. And what we see is those workers make less than they used to, they work less than they used to, are much more likely to be unemployed and so forth. And not all of that is being caused by immigration, but it does seem immigration is playing a significant role for those people at the bottom end of the labor market. Here's one thing to say. When I testify before Congress, what I hear from these folks, which seems so out of touch, is we don't have enough workers. We have a shortage. And yet, every single piece of data that the government itself collects does not support that conclusion. I could give you tons of statistics, but let me give you one. How many people of working age, 16 to 65, are not working right now? Well, it's almost 60 million. Back in 2000, it was about 40 million. I'm talking about here native-born people who are of working age. So what we've seen over more than the last decade, we've seen record immigration, and we've seen an explosion in the number of people not working in the United States. It is very hard to find any evidence of a labor shortage, of the kind that Congress seems to think exists, that would justify these huge increases in allowing in more foreign workers, both permanent and guest workers.
Chief?
Well, this reminds me of the analogy with some of the Indian tribes that were given reservations. And we look at those reservations today, and the Indians live in squalor. They don't own their own property. Many of them are drunks because they were given welfare handouts by the government. Some other Indian tribes that were denied reservations have openly said, hey, this was the best thing ever happened to us because it forced us to go out and work and get a job and get a career. And they own banks and they own big businesses, and they're doing very well. So what I see is the old story of immigrants coming to America for the American dream, working hard, learning English, and making a career for themselves. Now they're coming here because of the handouts. They're going to come here and do less work and get more handouts and create just like a big reservation for the immigrant society.
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, I sketched that briefly. Most immigrants do come to work, and most do work. So that's true. But unfortunately, or it depends on how you look at this, what happens is people work and get welfare. That's the thing you have to understand about our system. Particularly in the mid-'90s when we reformed the system, an enormous number of benefits go to the working poor. And because such a large fraction of immigrants have very little education, they work and qualify for health care because for health care, for food stamps, for free school lunch, for the WIC nutrition program for public and housing, subsidized housing, immigrants use those programs at relatively high rates, mainly because such a large fraction of immigrants don't have much education, and in the modern American economy, people with relatively little education don't make that much. This is very germane to the cost of the illegal immigration because we think that on average, illegal immigrants only have a 10th grade education, and that's why legalizing them raises the cost so much, not because they don't work, and not because they all want to be on welfare, but because this will make them even more eligible. Right now, they're getting a lot of benefits on behalf of the U.S.-born children. With legalization, that'll accelerate, and they themselves will be eligible after a few years. So I think that, but the underlying fact is most immigrants do work, but the large fraction without much education create very large fiscal costs for taxpayers. But of course, businesses don't see that because those costs are borne by everyone, whereas they get access to the worker that they want.
Now let's go to the next step because no one wants to talk about the facts here. You have Jeb Bush, and by the way, Jeb, if you're listening, you're a moron. But we have Jeb Bush saying, why, these are great people because they're fertile. Last time I checked, they used a different word than fertile, but yes, they know how to fornicate, and they know how to produce kids, because if you remember when Lyndon Baines Johnson was president, and they started whatever the hell, what do they call that program? The Great Society. They said, well, tell you what, if you don't get married and you have kids illegitimately, we love kids, so we'll give you stuff. And every person with no education or no morals or both started having kids, and we ended up with this explosion of kids being born to women that weren't married. And why? Because they got paid to have the kids. That's all these people are doing. They're getting, I guarantee you, if there were no food stamps, if there was no health care, if there was no benefits of any sort, these quote-unquote fertile folks wouldn't come here and be fertile. They'd be like everyone else. They'd say we can't afford them. But we pay them to have kids.
Yeah, let me say a couple quick things about that. There is evidence that social programs have played in the long term had a negative impact on family formation in the way that in the way that we worry about. So I think that's a fair point. But we do have to remember that that the rise in illegitimate birth, which has been very enormous among immigrants, has also been enormous among the native-born, and it's increased for everyone. It's increased for people who don't use welfare. It's increased for people who do use welfare. And yeah, you're certainly correct in that people who have children and aren't married have dramatically higher rates of welfare use. The social outcomes for their children are often very negative, very disconcerting in terms of academic performance, incarceration, and so forth. So the massive rise in illegitimacy among the native-born and the foreign-born is negative. However, what Bush said, he's not quite right either. The fertility rate, this is called the total fertility rate, of immigrants and natives, the immigrants do have more children on average. In 2011, the American Community Survey showed that on average, immigrant women have about 2.4 children on average. So their fertility isn't that high. The native-born women, the women born in this country, have about 1.9 children on average. So the immigrants do have somewhat higher fertility, more children on average, but not that much. If you average it out and say, well, what is the fertility rate in America because we have the immigrants? In other words, put the two together, the immigrants and natives together, the total fertility rate in the United States becomes 2. In other words, 2 children on average for each woman. Without the immigrants, it's just the rate for natives, 1.9. So immigration does create a somewhat higher fertility rate in the United States, but not that much.
Well,
immigrants do have more kids. So the idea that immigrants are going to come in and sort of make the population much younger because they have a lot more kids is just not possible. It's numerically wrong. Immigration does not significantly make the country younger. It does make the country bigger in terms of more people, but the immigrant fertility isn't that much higher, and there aren't enough of them to really change the birth rate overall in the United States. Does that help at all?
It does, but I don't agree with you, Steve. Steve, hold on a minute, because you're making a statement which, frankly, I'm going to take great exception to. One, they may have 2.4 kids, they claim 10, and they cost us a lot of money. Two, I've never met a Hispanic family, and I've met lots of them. I work in Walmart stores, and there are many Hispanic families that come in there, like many other families, and they have a kid every year because they get more money the more kids they have, and that secures their place in America. And three, I don't agree with your numbers of 11 million. But having said all that, what you're not talking about is the abortion rate. The fact is, native-born Americans abort kids. These immigrants don't. That's the reason there's somewhat of this parity. The fact is, if you take out the abortion factor, and by the way, abortion is murder, and anyone that kills a kid is murdering a child, but that's a factor. I don't know what the number is anymore. It's 2 million a year in ballpark. If we had those 2 million kids, our birth rate wouldn't be 1.9. It would be 2.2 or whatever the heck it should be. And right now at 1.9, obviously, that's below replacement. We would die out as a society if we don't average 2, and then and every woman doesn't even have kids. Go ahead, Steve.
Right, no, you're right. Every couple needs to have, and the usual figure cited by demographers is 2.1 children on average, just to maintain your population size. And even with immigrants, we don't have that, but it's close. At 2, without immigrants, it's still pretty close at 1.9. My only point was immigration doesn't seem to fundamentally change the fertility rate. Now, you're concerned that a lot of immigrants who have children are unable to support those children and turn to taxpayers is a perfectly reasonable one. Let me tell you what the government data shows. 50% of all immigrant households with children access one or more, and it's typically more than one, major welfare program. So that's cash assistance, food assistance, housing assistance. 1 out of every 2 households headed by an immigrant, if there are children present in that family, then the family access one or more welfare programs. Now, that is an extraordinarily high rate, and I should tell you that's only the self-reported rate in a survey called the Current Population Survey. And the actual rate is higher because people tend to not remember or deny that they're using a program. But even the self-reported rate is extraordinarily high. So you're concerned that a lot of immigrants come to America and have children and are not self-sufficient is true. The government data backs you up completely on that score.
All right, Chief.
Well, and to go further with that, so the illegal immigrants that are here, that they're getting free health care for their family and their children.
Education.
Free education, it's free for them. We're paying for that. The taxpayers are paying for all of this. And then you got the other factors involved here where they don't pay taxes. So the taxpayers are paying all of this welfare for them, all of these benefits for them, but they're paying none of that. Plus claiming more benefits that they're sending back to their home countries that they don't even that they should not even be claiming. So monetarily, this is very, very lopsided.
Look, the total income of illegal immigrants, I've estimated, illegal immigrant households is about $160 billion a year. Now, some of that is subject to taxation. We think about half of all illegal immigrants work on the books. But given their education level and low income, coupled with the number of children that they have, they typically, for example, don't pay income tax, though they might pay Social Security or Medicare tax. But let me just help you understand something else. We probably spend about $45 billion a year just on education for children from immigrant families, for illegal immigrant families. That's children born in the United States, and that's children not born in the States, but who are illegal themselves, and children born to illegals once they get here. So we spend about $45 billion. Now, if you just remember back, if the illegal immigrants have about $150 billion in income, you can see very quickly they would have to pay almost a third of their income just to pay for their education, assuming they were all paid on the books, which, as we've talked about, not. If you just add in a few other things, like the welfare programs, the food assistance programs that their children get, just incarceration, and just, costs for health care, you can see very quickly it's not possible for illegal immigrants to pay anywhere near enough in services to cover their consumption of public service, to pay enough in taxes, I should say, to cover their consumption of public services. So your concern that illegal immigration really kicks taxpayers in the teeth is right, and the main reason is that thing I told you at the beginning, that the illegal immigrants have about a 10th grade education on average, and people with that skill profile don't make a lot and use a lot. And so, there's a large fiscal drain associated with illegal immigration, and in the long run, legalization will almost certainly make that worse because you still have an unskilled population that's now eligible for even more programs.
Now, Steve, again, thank you for that, and it's obvious. I have heard a number of $85 to $100 billion currently is the net cost for having the illegals in this country. Now, of course, that doesn't measure the human cost. Look, every child is a child of God. Most people are good people. I don't argue that for a minute. But the fact is, 1/3 of all the people in federal custody are illegal immigrants. The toll in rapes and murders and robberies and assaults and car thefts and property damage and the like, not to mention the cost of incarceration and trials. I'm just saying the human cost. If they murder someone, no cost gets you that person back. And that's where no one's really paying attention. By letting in low, and again, if you don't have an education, it doesn't make you any different than a person with a PhD as far as quality. But by letting in low quality people, we have lowered the quality of life in this country, if you follow my drift.
Well, we certainly dramatically added to the low-income population, the people without health insurance, the people who need or use public services.
The people who rob,
very complex.
the people who rape, the people who steal,
right.
The people who get drunk, the people who fight, the people who do those things. I'm not just talking about the financial side. Let's talk about the human side.
No, you're right. Obviously, crime is a very serious issue. The data, and this is one of the very maddening things, the government does not do a very good job of keeping track of illegal immigrant criminality. So it's very hard to say what fraction of murders or what fractions of serious crime are committed by illegal immigrants. In some places where they've studied it closely, it looks to be a very large fraction in Lake County, Illinois, or Mecklenburg, North Carolina, or Maricopa County, Arizona. In those places, it does look like illegal immigrants are definitely committing a disproportionate share of crime. But it's harder to say that nationally. But, of course, one of the things that's so ridiculous is, putting aside whether their crime rates are very high or whatever, it's just the very idea that someone who's not even supposed to be in the country, somebody who'd previously been held by the police on a drunk driving charge and been identified to police, then goes out and kills someone as a drunk driver is outrageous. Or someone held on a previous drug charge, they identify him as an illegal immigrant, but because that jurisdiction has a policy of not informing the federal government, they let that person go, and they go out and commit an even more serious crime. That is outrageous. It should never happen, and it's happened tens of thousands of times. So on the big question, of how much crime illegal immigrants commit, I don't think we have a clear picture on that, and I actually have studied it. But on the specific stories of these kinds of outrages, it happens every day in America, that people previously held by the police are released because that jurisdiction, although they've identified or often identified the person as an illegal immigrant, won't notify the federal government, or if they do notify the federal government, the feds won't come and pick that person up, and then that person subsequently shoots a young man behind a school in New Jersey, or kills a father and his two sons in San Francisco, or rams into someone and kills two girls in Virginia Beach. All of those things happen, and they are outrageous, and they continue to happen.
Chief, talk to us.
Well, this is a country of laws, and right now the immigration law is being overlooked. And you mentioned the police letting illegal immigrants go. And the reason is because the federal government will not prosecute their own immigration laws. And so police departments, first of all, if they try to send them to the feds won't take them. So after a while, it's like, it's a waste of our time to even try.
And secondly, they'll sue you for being a racist for arresting.
And also, you talk about these crimes, so when an illegal immigrant crashes into somebody and kills them, all they have to do is just flee the scene. They get away, they change their name, get a new social security number, blah, 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 blah. And because they're here illegally, laws don't mean anything to them. You just stick around and you collect the benefits as long as you can, and just break whatever laws you have to break as long as you get to stay here and get your benefits.
I think we need to put a bounty on every illegal so that people can find them. And then once they're found, no matter who you are, where you are taken back to your country. I don't want anybody hurt, but I want them gone. And I don't think there's any other answer. And although politicians are cowards, the American people are going to get tired of this, and then we're going to see a bloodbath. That's my opinion.
Well, I certainly hope not. And I do think it's just some common sense things. You know, require employers to verify the legal status of their workers. We have that system in place. We need an entry-exit system that records the arrival and departure of people on temporary visas. We think 40% of all illegal immigrants didn't sneak into the country, but rather came on a temporary visa and then didn't go home when they were supposed to. They're called visa overstayers. We still, and this bill, believe it or not, still does not require the tracking of the arrival and departure of people who come in on temporary visas, even though it dramatically increases the number of people allowed in on temporary visas. The land borders are entirely unregulated, or we don't keep track, and this bill says that will continue. It's only requiring them at airports and seaports. So we need an entry-exit system. We need an employer verification system. We need to actually control the border. We need to get more cooperation from local law enforcement. And I must tell you, there are lots of places where local law enforcement wants to cooperate and tries, and you're right, the feds don't cooperate, but there are other places where the local jurisdiction, like Los Angeles, which has a sanctuary property, like San Francisco, like New York City, like Washington, D.C., the list goes on and on, have sanctuary policies essentially of non-cooperation with the federal government.
All right, Steve, we're out of time. Thank you for being with us. Give your website real quick.
CIS.org, like Center for Immigration Studies, CIS.org.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you being with us.
Take care.
Thanks for having me.
Folks, stay tuned. We got more. Hey, my name is Stan Solomon, and you know if I have something to say, I'll say it. And I'll only tell you the truth because I'm a Republican, not a Democrat. Democrats always lie. Republicans only lie half the time. I don't lie at all. This is the fuel mule. It's an extraordinary product that was developed by a friend of mine, an engineer, and it increases the fuel mileage on your vehicle. If you have a combustion engine, this will increase your mileage by 10 to 20%. It bolts around your fuel line. You can install it yourself or have your mechanic do it. It is an extraordinary item, and it flat works. I've been using it for more than 10 years. It's increased my mileage on every vehicle I put it on, and by the way, it will last forever. You can get rid of your vehicle, just take it off and put it on the next one. Go to cpnlive.com. You'll have more information there. You can order it right there. We absolutely guarantee you'll be satisfied. The Fuel Mule. It's a way to kick down your cost of fuel and kick up your mileage. Don't you love the name? I thought of it. The Fuel Mule.
For history does not long entrust the care of freedom to the weak or the timid. Nations may rise, fall, but an idea lives
You
on.
lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
History hasn't been easy on America. We've waged war in foreign fields and secured the blessings of liberty. But history isn't simply the story of our triumphs. It's also the story of our struggles, and we are no strangers to hardship. Each generation of Americans is tested, and we're entering a time of tribulation, disappearing jobs, disappointing politics. But beyond that lies the second American century, a new golden age. Our generation is being called not to win a revolution, but to preserve one, to recall the source of the blessings of liberty before liberty is squandered by those who do not understand that it can be lost forever. We are being called to declare that the principles of our founders are timeless, not temporary, to decide that freedom isn't always comfortable or convenient, but it is always necessary, whether it is in the public space or the marketplace. We are being called to remember simply who we are. When times are toughest, our truest character is revealed. Well, times are tough, and sometimes our politics can seem hopeless. So what do? We do what we have always done, what we're best at.
I fight for freedom.
For our republic. For my family.
For the free market.
I fight.
I fight.
I fight.
I fight. I fight.
We fight.
Let me ask you a question. Do you like being sick? I have in my hand an incredible product. It's called TR10 supercolloidal silver. TR10 stands for a trace to the negative 10th power. The particles in this silver product are 6 to 8 angstroms, 6 to 8 10 billionths of a meter. Now listen to me. Silver has been the magic bullet for all of human existence. The Egyptians used silver instruments. We use silverware. They put silver in your teeth because nothing can grow on silver. Silver will kill anything but liberalism. I'm working on that. This product, you go to cpnlive.com, buy 1 quart of this product. It will last you for a very long time. Anytime you feel like you've been exposed to something bad, take some of this product, spray it in your mouth, or take a little bit and gargle it, swallow it. It will kill any pathogen. The average antibiotic kills 10 to 20 different pathogens. This product will kill 700 plus. Do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, do your doctor a favor. He's tired of seeing you. Get supercolloidal silver. Go to cpnlive.com, order the product. It's $29.95 plus shipping. I think it's $39.95 delivered any place in America right to your door. It's worth 10 times that. Check it out. If you're not 100% happy, just return it and we'll give you your money back.